And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this second hour of session 0 of the Long Voyage. And the the banter while we have been away has been quite amusing. Let's put it that way. Rasmus is doing a sterling job on creating thumbnails for all the characters, and they're quite good so far. So you can look forward to when you guys see them as well. It's always nice to have talented artists on your group, you know. It makes
Yes, it really is.
Thank you.
thank you. I'll be here all week. And yes, let us get back to the Q&A. So if you have any other Qs, I'll have more As. Ha ha.
Well, I have a sort of general A.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other figures or terms like Gangaria that would be good for us to know from the beginning?
Well, I mentioned the name of the noble titles, right? And Jarl Hersier, for example. The idea of swords, for example. The Great Contest is also a good one. The Powers, goodness gracious, the Powers. Other than that, the one that might be very useful for you is knowledge of the nearest other country, which, as I've mentioned before, is called Tirglass. Tirglass is not called that by the Southlanders. It's referred to as the Green Shores. Tirglass is probably a very badly mangled Irish Gaelic word for the Green Land or Green Island. That being said, you will probably find, if any of you listening into this out there happen to be fluent in Old Norse or in Gaelic or any other language, you will find butchered versions of your language there. It is not meant as an insult. This is a fantasy world. Things are not entirely translatable. There's that disclaimer handled. But those are obviously good to know about. There's also, of course, there is Hyrborg, which is the place where you came from. Hyrborg literally means castle of fire, or fortress of fire. Foreshadowing, yes. Indeed, but yes. More than that, let's see what have we. Another term that is well, there are the battle maidens. You already heard about them. There's the concept of the warband, which is important to the Southlanders, because this is not a rigidly structured military society. It's a warrior society more than it's a military society, which means that there aren't any standardized unit sizes and, you know, uniform armament of people across vast numbers of troops and so on. It's they're individual warriors, and the warband is the basic unit of the Southlands, and it can be a warband can encompass one ship's crew, or maybe not even a ship's crew in some of the smaller ones, maybe because they've been beaten very badly and have lost many of their number. It can also be, in the case of some of the larger ones, it can be a warband that owns several ships, maybe even 4 ships, 5 ships, but then that would be a very large one. And the warbands often have names. They often, go by names that are picked to sound cool and make them, come across as being kind of awesome in all manner of ways. There's the most famous one in the Southlands is one that Baggy has some knowledge of, which is known as the Last Stand Brotherhood. Last Stand Brotherhood is a group, is a warband which is already at this time is quite old, has existed through generations already, and they have sworn to never take a single step backwards in battle. The only thing they are allowed to do is relocate along a line, but they can never retreat, which means that obviously if a battle goes against them, they will be wiped out to the last man.
Was this warband founded by Joseph Stalin?
No, but you'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yes.
But no, it is considered an immense honor to be a part of the Last Stand Brotherhood, but they are pragmatists insofar as they never deploy all their men in the same place at the same time. Because just occasionally you do lose a battle, and if you lose a battle and you are them, you get wiped out, and that's the end of the warband. So they are sufficiently pragmatic to make sure that there are some elsewhere who can carry on. But that's the idea with them. There are other warbands out there. They are distinguished not by a uniform as such, but by the color or colors of the heavy woolen cloak that they wear. This is an almost universal item of clothing in the Southlands. There's this very heavy woolen cloak. It's very useful. It keeps you warm in a place like the Southlands. But for a warband, it'll be dyed in the colors of their particular unit, so that you can recognize them on the battlefield based on that. It's not always practical to actually wear a heavy cloak into battle, but then they might roll it up and tie it around themselves, or carry a strip of cloth around their upper arm to in the same colors, so that they can be distinguished in that way. And the color of the cloak associated with Hyrborg is a very warm orange and white in stripes. So it's almost a sun color, just as the sun is starting to set, that kind of orange.
And for the last stand?
Sorry, what?
Frody is wearing it in the picture.
Yeah, Frody is wearing one in the picture, so I'll just bring that up. The Last Stand Brotherhood is famous for wearing these very, very deep scarlet cloaks.
Okay.
The most famous of all cloaks in the Southlands, it should be said, the without any contest whatsoever, are the black cloaks. And they aren't really a warband as such. They belong to the most elite of all Southlander forces. They're known as the Huntsmen and the Huntresses, depending on gender, obviously. There are never more than maybe 9, 9, maybe 10, but 8 is typical. They are single crews, hand-picked by Gangarior, who is also, I should have mentioned that before, but she is also known to her people as the Raven Lady. And to her enemies by many other less flattering things, but she handpicks a number of her most loyal and skilled crews, and the captain of that ship becomes either a huntsman or a huntress, and their entire crew is allowed to wear this black cloak as well. It is the highest honor that can be bestowed on any Southlander. There's people dream of wearing one of these.
Yeah.
But it's also something which is obviously only for the very, very select few. The reason why is also that she will send her huntsmen and her huntresses out on the absolutely most dangerous missions. So there's a certain circulation of black cloaks. But those who survive the first few missions will typically be... Well, let's just say that it's very, very hard to kill them because they know every trick in the book. And
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I hope that pretty much answers that. What other terminology might there be? Boom, 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 boom. I don't think there's anything that's really, super important right from the get-go.
Okay.
So yeah, other questions you would like answered?
That's good. That in itself is a question that we need to think about.
I think for me, it's very much a question of learning as we play. So
True,
I imagine I'll have lots of questions as we get on with the game.
Definitely, I will. Obviously, I'll be more than happy to answer them as they come up. It's mostly right now. It's mostly a matter of, do we have anything that really needs to be taken care of from the beginning, because basic knowledge is let's face it, rather nice to have.
Absolutely.
Something has occurred to me.
Yes.
Since we now know the general story of the world and of the Southlands and how our part works, but why didn't you explain basically the backstory of what we're going through? Why didn't you explain how Hjorborg, the Fortress of Fire, someone decided...
We're gonna start that. That's gonna be how we begin the game.
Fair enough. I just thought it might be a good idea to explain why someone decided that the Fortress of Fire needed to be a much more literal name than most people.
Well, as I said, that is where we start the game. But I will say that the reason why you guys are on the ship and in the first place is because that's obviously kind of relevant. Is because of one young man
and his dog.
No, just this young man. This guy. This is the captain of the ship, Ormer of Hjorborg, and yeah, he looks older in this picture than he actually is. He is 16 going on 17. He grew a beard at a very young age, which he is quite immensely proud of. He is a rather strapping fellow with unusually good looks for a Southlander, and he's a very outgoing and friendly, adventurous kind of young man. But he is the son of the Jarl of Hjorborg. He is in fact he is the next Jarl waiting. He's when his father dies, he's going to be, the man with the title and the power and all these things. And because of that, his father basically decided that, son, maybe you should actually learn how to handle a ship, before you turn, before you strictly speaking become an adult, and before you take a wife. Because, well, noble and all that. He has to be a warrior. He has to be a leader of men, and because his marriage is coming up to an exceptionally beautiful young woman of coming from a family going by the name of Phelan. That's their family name. Because of that, he had better learn the last few things he needs to learn about leadership and war and so on before the actual marriage takes place. And consequently, his father has plonked him down on a ship, the erstwhile Fagerferd, and has told him to set out there, and with this crew of well, in some ways this sort of mismatched crew of people from around Hjorborg that have been, chosen to go along, and in some cases deliberately chosen because, you have some skills that could be useful. His dad has basically sent him off and said, take a couple of weeks to learn how to sail this and get the basics of navigation and get to feel a deck under your feet for an extended period of time, have a bit of an adventure, that sort of thing. And he has set off, and you guys happen to be on this crew for this journey, you have been fully armed and prepared, mostly because there are still 2 other swords in the Southlands who also control areas and might have ships on the sea, and just in case you happen to bump into one of them, it might be a really good idea to actually be able to fight back. So you've been kitted out for war, but the idea behind the mission, the goal of this little sailing expedition has basically been to get to know the ship, because this is a gift to Ormer from his father for his upcoming wedding. And it is a very good ship, it should be said. You've come to be familiar with it over these last 2 weeks, and it's a very good ship. It's fast, it's stable in the water. It shoots an impressive speed under both under oars and under sail, and when you combine the two, it's almost enough to give you this feeling of a thrill. It's almost like you're at the top of a roller coaster, and just as you start to go down, that sensation, because it's really, really fast. And so you've actually had a pretty good time of it. It's been at times, obviously, it's been hard work. It always is. But at other times it's been fun. You've gone ashore in a couple of places, done some hunting, gotten a good look around, found a couple of small islands off the coast in various places where you've gone ashore and just basically hung out and camped for the night and that sort of thing. And you've basically sailed as far north as something known as the Teeth of the Great Wolf. And the Teeth of the Great Wolf is a reef. It is an enormous reef, very, very, very long. It takes, even for a fast Southlander ship, it takes several weeks to sail along its entire length, and it is the known as the first line of defense for the Southlands, because their ships have a shallow enough draft that they can get through this reef in relative safety, especially because most Southlanders will have at least 1 or 2 people on board a ship who know how to get, they will know some of the sailing lanes. But other than that, it's if somebody were to sail south and they didn't know, their navy would be torn to pieces on this reef. And you went as far north as that, but didn't cross through the Teeth. So you've had a good couple of weeks on the ocean, and basically when we start the game, you are literally coming up towards Hörborg. It is very late afternoon, starting to be early evening. The sun has already set, and basically, the lots of you're starting to look. You're looking forward to getting home and seeing your loved ones, your families, and so on again. And unfortunately for you, you have to sit at the oars because you are sailing. The tide is going out, so you are rowing against the tide to get to shore.
Most unhelpful, but
very unhelpful. But that's where we start the game when we started. And
Cool.
Yes, so.
I have a question.
Yes, by all means.
And this is somewhat important for one of Baggy's disadvantages.
Yes.
Privacy.
Yes.
Is that a thing on a ship? Can he go, "I'll be in my bunk"?
No. It's
Damn
again.
it.
If you've looked at a Viking ship, there's no such thing.
I was hoping it would have.
In fact, I should be able to demonstrate just how this works, because I do believe I made a yes there. That should show you what the Fagerfärd actually looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are rowing benches in there, and that's the only other thing on this ship.
I suppose he can always use his woolen cloak then.
Yes. Yes.
Thing.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yes. It's
What in God's name do you need to do?
Well,
Masturbate?
Yeah, I was thinking that's the impression I'm getting.
Rasmus? But yeah, that's the
I figured
there
as
is,
much, but
yes, there is no such thing as privacy here. Oh, he's gonna be a grumpy, stressful guy when they get to shore.
yep.
And yes, yeah. I am tempted to ask if you guys want to just start with the introduction tonight. We have plenty of time, so
I think unless anyone else has any questions, we might as well.
I think that suggests that we have no questions. Unless someone's muted, which is entirely possible.
Yes. It happens a lot.
It does. It really does. Well, I'm gonna just wait until Rasmus returns to his chair and make sure if he's up for it. But if he is, are you okay with starting? The prequel sort of lead-in tonight. All right. It looks like that might be an idea. Well, in that case, I shall pour myself a cup of tea because tea is necessary in this world.
Ooh, don't drag out the time.
And I'm also going to pour a little bit of milk into it because I'm that kind of hedonist.
Milk and tea is not only a necessity, it is the preferred method.
And,
Yes.
And on that note, I think we might as well get started.
Yep.
So, basically, as I described it before, you are all sitting on an oar bench, pulling on an oar, coming up on Hörborg in the far distance. It's still a ways off. The crew is in high spirits. It's been a fun trip. Most of the people on this crew have turned out to actually get along reasonably well, and they would like to. They're basically, most of them are hoping that they will be kept together as a crew because things have gone so well on these sea trials, because that's basically what it is. And they're hoping that this wasn't just a matter of the Jarl saying, oh well, you guys are the ones who are closest, and then you'll all get replaced when you get home, because it's been such a good ship, and it's been everybody's worked together well. So it would be nicer to stick together in that regard. There's one young man on the crew, this fellow, Lofi, is he breaks into song. He starts singing. You're almost home, and he's clearly in a good mood. So he breaks out into a pretty common, normal song, rowing song specifically, because it has good rhythm to row to, and of course a good part of the crew in general join in, because why not?
Baggy joins in as well.
Yeah.
As does Brody.
Ilva does the same, but she doesn't have a bird's voice. Let's just put it that way.
Not everybody on the crew does, and nobody gets looked at badly, with one exception. There's one guy on the crew who breaks into loud song, and everybody cringes because just all the no. This fellow, yes. as the text to this guy says, he sounds a bit like a constipated walrus when he sings, and he sings a lot and loudly.
This is
And
a common
proudly.
Yes.
this is a common theme of any game you
Yes.
you run.
Yes.
It has to be one character who sings really loudly and very loudly and enthusiastically.
Yes. It's a good thing to have in your game. Tropes are a thing.
Tropes, yes.
Yeah. Well, in the last game, the Song of Tara, it was a wolf named Sings Really Fecking Badly.
Yes, indeed. But yes, you are slowly but surely making your way against the tide. The first mate, Rani, who is a very even by Southlander standards, he is a grizzled man. He suggests clearly, those of you who are sitting close to the stern, where he is standing with Ormer and obviously with Ulva on the oar, on the steering oar. So down here, and they are. He suggests. He says, I know everybody wants to get home, but it might be a good idea to drop anchor because, before we get to shore, everybody is going to be completely exhausted, and we're going to start drifting out to sea again. And Ormer thinks about this really hard because he can tell people want to get home, but at the other hand, he clearly respects Rani, and he knows that there's probably a certain amount of truth to what the man is saying, that it might just be a better idea to drop anchor for now. But he says, well, let's wait a little while longer and see if we might hit a cross current, or the wind might pick up and help carry us to shore. So we'll see a little while longer, but eventually it becomes clear, even to you guys at the oars, it becomes absolutely, completely clear that you're not going to make it onto shore tonight. There is no human way possible. The current is very, very strong, and it's going directly against you. So at some point, it's decided to drop anchor, and as basically Ormer looks out over the crew and he says, "Well, you will see everyone again tomorrow morning. It'll be, at first light. We're gonna sail in on the tide, and you're gonna be, you're gonna have the whole day with your families and loved ones." And people almost, slump at the oars because you've been hauling on it for the better part of 4 hours. Been completely exhausted. And good cheer starts to spread throughout the boat. A few more songs are sung.
Some games.
Games
that
are
I
being
can
played.
certainly
Exactly.
provide.
Exactly, but games are brought out. Dice, the little carved bones, tossing piglets is what it's called. They're carved like little pigs, and then you toss them, and depending on how they land, you get points.
Castigles.
Yeah, exactly.
The Danish game, Castigles.
Yes, it is a very old game. There are bones, medieval bones that have been found that is believed to have been used for a similar game.
Oh my god.
Yep. So
That's pretty cool.
it is, isn't it? So there are little games like that being played. Somebody has, a couple of people actually on board have tafel boards with them, so you can play. Those are basically, they're also known as Viking chess in or Knefatafel in our own world, but it's the same kind of game, and It's just, you know, generally speaking, just having a pretty good time until at some point, and at first none of you are really sure how you notice it, but at some point, let's say it's Sindri. He's got good eyes. And he's there for that. You suddenly see from shore. You can. I mean, you can see. You can see Hyrborg in the far distance, obviously, but it's still a ways in, and you can see this hue around it, and it's dark. There isn't, you know, there shouldn't be that kind of it shouldn't be lit up like that. Not this time of night.
Oma, Rani.
Yeah? Rani comes over.
Unless my eyes deceive me, something is very wrong at Hyrborg. Shouldn't be lit like that. Not in this night time.
And he narrows his eyes and, you know, looks closely, and he swears under his breath, and he turns around, looks at everybody and says, "Everybody on the oars right now!"
I think at first Baggy looks up somewhat surprised at this because, yeah, they were having a good time. But as soon as he sees, as soon as he looks at their faces, he can see that something is wrong.
Something is horribly wrong, yeah.
Yep. And he just, he tosses the bones he was using as game aside and rushes to the oar.
Yeah. Everybody else does as well. You know, everybody gets on the oar, and of course you're still, none of you are fully rested. You can feel it within the first 50 strokes of the oars. You can feel how your muscles start to ache again, but everybody just, you know, you haul and you haul and you haul to get in there, and as you get closer, nobody on the ship is in any doubt what is happening in there, because flames start to lick up over the night sky. There is no question that Hyrborg is on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it all the way out to sea. You realize you might be, well, they don't use miles obviously in this, but you are in our terms, you might be still 12 miles out to sea. But you can still see this clearly.
Which indicates that Hyrborg must have been a fairly big place for the fire to be large enough to be seen that far away.
As I said, it's about 2,000 people living there.
Not anymore.
You keep hauling, you keep trying to get there, and it is, everybody is wearing themselves to the bone. Ormer is at the back, and he is calling out the cadence for you to row in, and it is he's keeping a furious pace. This is very nearly, well, this is ramming speed, and he's asking you to keep it up for, you know, a very long time, and everyone on board, all the crew are muttering to themselves. They're, you know, occasionally one of them might turn around and look over his or her shoulder with a desperate look on their faces. They realize that whatever is happening in there, whatever it is very, very, very bad. And you eventually you do get close enough that you can make out people on the beaches. You can make out ships beached beneath the cliffs where Hyrborg is positioned. You can see exactly what is going on in there, and you realize immediately that most of the ships that are beached on down by the ocean, you can see them very, very clearly, because of course the because of the what are they called? Because of the backlighting from the fire, you can see one of them, which is still. Its mast is still, or the boom of the mast is still, the yard it hasn't taken its sail down. For whatever reason, they've forgotten to take the sail down, and that means you can see through the backlighting. You can see the heraldry on the sail, and it belongs to the Phalans.
I assume Sindri will have taken his turn on the oars as well, because they
of
need to go with all haste. But
of course.
when we got close enough, could it be reasonable to assume that he would have then gone up into the mast to get a better look?
Yeah, exactly. And you can clearly see that this is a warship. There's no question. This is not a trading vessel in any way. It's a warship, and you have no doubt from the heraldry, this ship belongs to the Phalan family.
And you saw that with the color it had.
Yes, with the color and the fact that the Phalans also use a large stylized. There are two crossed claws on their sail and on their shields and so on. It's
Okay.
and you can see the outline of the claws on the sail. It's very distinct. You have no doubt. The Phalan family has been feuding with the Jarl of Fjerborg for generations. Ormer's upcoming marriage is meant to end that feud.
Didn't end it quick enough, it seems.
So what do you do? What do you are the person with the best view.
Well, considering what I reckon, Sindri probably has a pretty good idea of what the hell's happening. He also has a good idea that if he starts yelling down at people, his voice will probably carry across the oceans a certain degree, and then someone might on land.
Nobody in there is going to hear anything. I can promise you that.
Fair enough.
Simply because the noise of well, for one thing, the noise of the fire, you can hear it all the way out here.
It's the sound of roaring fires and creaking wood.
Yeah.
In that case, fine. Again, shouting down to Ormer and Honey in particular, but to the crew in general. Phalan warships, lots of them. I feel we are betrayed.
Baggy doesn't say anything. He just doubles his efforts.
Yeah.
Jaws clenched.
And everybody, obviously everybody does so. And it becomes obvious to you that because you can see on shore, you get, as you get that bit closer, you can see people who are running for some of the ships, civilians from the looks of it, women, even children who are trying to reach the safety of ships and get out to sea and escape. And they're being pursued by armed men. You can see, obviously, mostly you see, what are they called? Silhouettes, but occasionally you can spot, a person in there more clearly. And it's horrific to look at. There's no mercy. People are cut down where they stand, and Ormer is urging everyone to haul. But at this point, you all seem to realize you can't get to shore. It's as if the ocean is actively pushing back. And he turns and looks towards Frodi and says, "Is this magic?"
Do I know if this could be magic?
It could be. It certainly could be.
It could be. I don't know.
Powers. No. For this is foulest treachery. Come on, we cannot let it end like this. One of the men on the oar says, "Come on, we have to. We have to get in there. There are families." And some of the crew by now are so exhausted from hauling on the oars that they are literally starting to slump from their rowing benches, collapsing from exhaustion. And again, it just pushes back against you, and as that happens, you can see Sindri from where you are sitting.
Mm-hmm.
You see two figures on shore who are not taking part in the slaughter, but who are in both cases they're holding one hand out towards the ocean, and then the other hand. So it's almost like they're doing that motion that cats do when they massage you in the morning. With you're waking up, that where they shove,
The kneading?
Yeah, the kneading thing. They're doing almost that motion with their hands towards the ocean, like they're pushing something away, first with one hand, then with the other.
Would I recognize this as a pair of side makers?
There's a very, very good chance that that's the case, definitely. There's no, you can't be 100% certain, obviously, but that's as good a guess as any.
I see two figures pushing their hands out in front of them towards the ocean. You said magic. I think you're right.
Ormer looks at up towards you and says, "Well, in that case, use your bow."
Okay.
Get down from there. Get to the stem and take them down. You realize that they're still too far away. You can't hit them. They're outside the range of your bow.
Meanwhile, Baggy, seeing his fellow Roman slump in their seats, he stands up and yells at them, "Come, men! Those are our families in there! Row harder!"
And they a couple of them pull themselves back up and start pulling again as much as they are able, but 3 or 4 men are literally unconscious. and others, they've been rowing so hard for so long that they collapse. And I mean, all the rest of you are, every one of you, you're physically exhausted. Obviously, at this point, there's no way around that. But some of them are clearly just. You see one man at this point who gets up from his rowing bench, and he hurries down towards where Sindri is standing. He hasn't brought his shield, but he has brought his axe. He's not armored. He has left his armor on behind him. It's this man. He's brought his axe, and just at the very last moment, Sindri, you realize that he's probably going to throw himself into the ocean to swim in. What do you do?
Grab him. Attempt to tackle him, basically.
Yeah, that's he doesn't seem to notice you. He just, he's frantic, and he's wailing that he can see his wife and his children on the beach. And the moment you get him down, 2 others come and help you hold him, because obviously if he throws himself into the ocean here, he will drown. So they keep him to the deck.
Yes.
And at this point, any semblance of trying to row the ship in, even despite the people who are still hauling on the oars, you can feel how you're slowly drifting back out to sea.
I think with the 2 people are... Oh, sorry.
Would I know if they're also outside of my range?
You can try, but it would be it would let's just say you're not sure if you can reach them.
I think at this point it's mostly a case of I have to try.
Yes. All right.
In that case, I'm assuming he's also been rowing because
Yeah,
you know
of course.
everyone rows. Frody lets go and stands up to use his magic to try and throw a fireball at them.
Yes. So you get to the again. You move up to the stern of or the stem of the.
No reason to hit the rest of the ship.
Now that would probably be a very bad idea. You move up there and you form a fireball. Actually, let me see you do a roll for that. Here we go.
Yes. What do I need to roll? Oh, it has
Have a skill level in the fireball skill.
I see a dice symbol.
Yes.
I assume that would work
I
then.
will take a look, but I think it should. You can always try hitting it, and if it doesn't, then
It seems to work.
yep, it does.
I rolled 11 versus 13.
Looks like 12. Oh, no, sorry, 11 versus 13. Yes, there you go. And you.
I have forgotten what that means. I don't remember.
It means that if you 13 is your skill, you have to roll equal to or under it to succeed on 3d6. That's how it works. And this is a 1d6 fireball. You are quite frankly so tired that you have no. You probably realize if you put more into it, you will fall over on the deck as well.
I think he's already prepared to that as he puts his hands in front of him to shape the fire and then shoot it.
Yes. And the rest of you see that Frothy does in fact conjure up. There's a flame that forms in his hand, and then he twirls it around a couple of times, like forming a nice spherical shape, and then he launches it. It trails fire for maybe 20 paces or so behind it. There's this tail of fire coming out of it, and the what's it called? The fireball. It doesn't reach the man on the shore, but it does blast the aft of one of the Phelan ships and sets it aflame. But again, you are still drifting away from shore, and you realize that was at the absolute extreme. But it does mean that you get even more light on the on what is happening on the beach, and well, except for Gulfi, you've all seen battle before. You've never seen it quite like this before. It's everyone. It's old men and women. It's wives and children. It's a few warriors who are still standing and who are desperately trying to defend them long enough that they can get on board some kind of boat or ship and make it to safety, but they are outnumbered by many times over, and they are cut down, and it is horror. It is pure horror. And you are all sure that you recognize someone in there, whether it's family or friends, but you recognize someone.
Powers, no.
As at this point, is there anyone still trying to row? Is Ormer still trying to encourage us to try and fight against the current?
Ormer has a look on his face unlike anything any of you have seen before. It's one of absolute determination, and he walks up through the middle of the ship, hurls himself around the mast in the middle, and grabs a hold of Ronnie's arm and looks at him, hauls him in, and says a few words to him in a very low tone of voice. Nobody else can hear what is being said. Ronnie at first looks shocked, And then he looks back towards the beach, and then to all of you, everyone, all the crew, and then he nods and says, "I don't think we have a choice." And at this point, it becomes clear that it's lost. You will never get to shore. The people are so exhausted at the oars that you are slowly pushed back out to sea. A few people are arguing, but let's try sailing around and going ashore, and there must be something we can do. And most of the crew at this point are either catatonic with shock, and in some cases they are sobbing from what they've seen.
I think if anyone is particularly vocally saying if we just push a bit harder, Cinder will be the one somewhat short-temperedly telling them, what would you do? Would you leave? Would you, even if by some miracle we were to get to shore, would you want to do this battle half dead and unable to raise your weapon arms? What do you think you can do now?
And you drift for you don't really have any idea for how long. You do drift back out. You can still see the fire, of course. But you don't really, you have no idea for how long you drift out towards sea. And finally, Ormer calls out to all of you. He says, "Men, listen to me.
Well, Frodi has been staring at the bottom of the boat for a long while, but he at least looks up.
He says, we are betrayed. We all saw that. We've lost everything. My family, yours, our friends. We will never get to shore in time. Even if we did, we would be outnumbered, 10, 20 to 1. We, here, us, we are Hurborg now. There are only us left. Would we throw our lives away in vain? No. I say no. Our families are not served by that. So, he says, and looks back towards shore. He takes a deep breath and he says, I am taking this ship and leaving. I want to see the Lotus Lands and the Eastern Sands before I die. I want to see the whole world with no regrets. I want to taste the color of the sky. I want to bathe in the sound of waves against the hull of a fast ship. Fear nothing. And live every day like there will be no tomorrow. Nothing lasts forever, men. I promise you nothing except adventure. And for me, that is easily enough.
Baggy stands up and looks at his captain and says, I stand with you, Captain.
Thank you, Baggy.
And maybe we'll get some vengeance someday.
Exactly. That's the whole point. We will leave. We will get strong. We will come back here one day, and it may be a long time, but we will come back here one day, and we will make every last one of them bleed.
I'm with you to the end of the earth and back. Oh, world, not earth.
Are you with me? All of you? Boggy and Frothy are with me. Ronnie is with me. What about the rest of you?
Aye, always. My eyes, my bow, my skills, my life are all yours.
I would say Gilfie this entire time was frozen, like with his hands on the side of the ship, just pale with cold sweat on his and not turning to the captain because he's still semi-frozen in his stance. Is like very very quiet. Like you wouldn't hear it if it wasn't like silent for a split second. It was like, I'm with you, Captain.
Good. And others on the crew, obviously, are, they respond as well.
Not to be outdone by the Craven boy.
Yeah, exactly. None of them want to be seen as second to the kid who doesn't like fighting.
Can we confirm that we can hear Aya now?
No. Aya, can you? There you are. Hello. What were you saying?
Well, she spoke up pretty quickly and said, "Of course I will stand with you."
Thank you. He looks at the rest of them as well, everybody else on the crew as well, and one by one, they all stand up and swear to follow. And one of the last to stand up is this young man, Granny. This is his adopted brother. It's the adopted son of the Jarl. He stands up and he says, "Well, then Fagerferd is Hurborg now. Then I swear that as long as I live, the ship will not be taken. As long as this ship is not taken, there are still walls of Hurborg. Before the powers, I swear this."
By the powers.
Ormer sits down in the stern of the ship and he says, "Everybody, rest. If the Phalans are gone, come morning, we will row back in and assess what has happened. If they are still there, and they may be, then we leave. And we will be back later when we are stronger and better prepared, and when we are not alone."
Mm-hmm.
And he puts his face, or he sets his face in a very stoic expression, and he places his sword across his knees, flat over his legs, and he takes his left thumb and makes at first where he looks like he's about to cut that, he doesn't. And then instead he places a shallow cut, but it is a cut nonetheless, over the palm of his hand. And he holds his hand over the side of the ship. And Ylva, you're close enough to be able to hear him. I don't know, maybe one or of the rest of you, or a couple of you, are also down near that end of the ship. I'll leave that up to you. But you hear him. Say between clenched teeth, as a few drops of blood drips into the water. He says, "Lord of Waters, protect this crew and bring us home safe."
Nothing unusual in that.
No, nothing at all.
Nope, exactly as I said. Nothing unusual in that.
Exactly. So, we're going to take another break here and be back for another hour of The Long Voyage.
Yes.